Taking a little walk here. Dog likes to come on a walk. Cat likes to come on a walk. Cat was back there meowing because I think this is the furthest the cat's been. I had to go back and get her and say, come on. And she wouldn't come, ran off like, I wasn't asking for you. And then comes crushing through the forest. How you doing? It's pretty neat, huh, Natalie? Trees. So I've been working really hard on this responder tool thing because YouTube does this really weird stuff. You probably wouldn't notice this. I hadn't noticed it. But when you click on like a video in someone's video list, it doesn't actually send you to that page. It doesn't act as a normal div. It plays this game with the history where it pushes the state of history and just reloads the page. So I spent about 30, 40 hours on that, working really late, up till 3 in the morning kind of stuff. But I also did get some time working on the website and things that are necessary to publish it. So that was good. Hey, Lily, where are you going? Hang around here, Lily. So that's good. I just I keep getting closer, and then there's little holes in it. I think I just solved the last one, but we'll see. But really want to get that done before I get other work that might interfere with it. Other paying work, I might have to, I could get interrupted at the wrong time. That would be unfortunate, but it's the kind of problem you want to have, as they say. But I was thinking, what about this, my version of describing what I've found, looking at the spiritual experiences I've had. And so I figured I'd describe a little bit of that. Now, one thing I noticed is that a couple things. One, looking at a beautiful vista gives it. I have a feeling that I get this feeling when it feels like my horizons are expanded, when I see a bigger sphere of connected things of which I'm a part, and there feels like there's this personal meaning, right, to it. And it's a personal meaning, but it's expanded to things beyond myself. And this is where my view of morality and my definition, rather, of morality and enlightenment come from. I believe that this feeling of the spiritual feeling often feels like being enlightened. And that can be an illusion, right? Keep in mind, it's just like with the feeling of love. I don't believe in the goddess Venus or Cupid has fired its arrow or anything. And so similarly, there's a feeling of this personal meaning, but I don't trust that feeling, but I also don't ignore it, right? So, I'm left with like trying to filter out the noise from the signal. And to me, it has to do with the connection of the things seem to have to me and to each other. All right, so I think that a healthy spirituality ought to make someone feel more connected and give people a sense of right and wrong, because you get a sense of this connection. And so with that can come a sense of what's right and wrong in terms of how to treat things that you're connected to. And ultimately, you're connected to everything, so there becomes a sort of a sense of a universal morality. And if you draw that from your own humanity, then there's even reason to expect to have these sort of objective morality expectations that I don't believe in, because things that apply to me, I have a lot of similarity with other human beings, and so one can assume that one ought to see the same connections, say to one's cat, that I see, my responsibilities and so on and so forth. So I do think there's a reason to look to that feeling for a sense of morality, which, as I've said, is how you ought to treat things that are in groups and systems that you're a part of, or take yourself to be a part of, or want to take yourself to be a part of. So it is connected to the way I live my life, because it's connected to the morality and ethics that I've developed. Though I think ethics is a slightly more technical term, right? You invent a role like policeman or lawyer or doctor that has a certain role within this system of connection, and you have special rules because of that role, sub-rules really, from a moral standpoint. And I don't think that other people will have the feeling at the same moments, but I do tend to think that uh, that it's these kinds of connections that all people will see in their own way through their own experiences, where that happen to make them notice these connections. And I think there's unhealthy morality in that. I think a lot of crazy people have found a spiritual path, and it's not a positive thing. I think that a violent person or people more prone to this feeling, say because of a mental illness, um, they can picture a system of negative connections and then embrace and try to act on those negative connections. And I consider that uh, a an unhealthy spirituality. And in my case, though, I think that it has uh, told me how we ought to be in symbiosis with our surroundings. And so I look to nature to get an idea of how symbiotic connections work. And then I use natural philosophy and rationalism to sort of test if these connections are positive or negative. And when I see a negative connection, regardless of the feeling, I will reject that as an instructive experience, and I won't act on them. Um, so if I had some sort of a vision experience telling me that, might made right, and I ought to just dominate, I would take that as a negative experience, and I would not allow that to instruct me in my morality. I would not take a destructive idea of a feeling of domination as instructive. Now, I don't naturally have those kinds of feelings. I don't think a lot of people have a choice. Maybe all of their experiences instruct them in that direction, and so they would necessarily act in that direction. In other words, it's my predilection to define negativity versus positivity in this way. It's my own coordinate system. Maybe I was born with, or maybe I found it, or whatever. It's kind of the super environment that I don't question. But as an individual, when you're feeling down and negative, you can see these negative connections, and they give negative advice on how to treat the world around you. And that's even a case where I would even advocate inhibitions, which I'm not a big fan of using inhibitions to control one's own behavior. But in that case, if you can see yourself as doing something just rationally destructive, if you see that the reasons are negative and destructive reasons, then I personally, in a technical sense, would not call those ideas unreasonable. I would call that unhealthy reasoning, and I would be willing to stop that in whatever way necessary, including inhibition, which I consider a last resort. And I think some of these things that I found in my own spirituality really can be generalized beyond myself, and in a way, it doesn't matter whether they can be generalized or not. They form the foundation of my own system of judgment. So whether or not I was right or wrong about an appropriate moral action, I know where I stand. So I know where I am in say, fighting slavery or things like slavery, oppression of people, domination philosophies. And all of this is stuff that I have learned from paying attention to my own spiritual experiences. And that's just the way that it is. And you can question it, but I don't really have to take that seriously any more than if you question the process by which I, find someone to love. We can only write ourselves on the page, plot our location on a map in shared territory, and we can't change the fact, and there's no reason to really expect to be able to resolve discrepancies in how we map the system. And there's even less reason to expect we would want to be in the same place on the map, even if we could share the map. So this goes to the question of how we share these experiences. What kind of things can we, how do you describe something, a feeling, to another person? You have to use metaphor, but you have to use metaphor, I think, to describe anything. And so one way we do that is by discussing what we have found through our experiences, whatever emotion or feeling might be behind our definition of that experience. So, so in that sense, I do have reason to promote my own morality and spirituality in a very general way, but not in a specific way. Because I think the specifics are very personal. It's about your own life. But we have a shared experience, and insofar as it's a shared experience, and a moral system is about a group, and so the group shares things, that's what makes it a group. Yeah, I think that a positive spirituality ought to lead someone to a anxiety-free sort of view on how you get along with the world and with people and with other mammals, and that it can help overcome angry feelings about the drama of life, and it helps me, and then I think it could help other people if they pursue their own custom version of this, their version, that it would still ought to and can potentially rather provide a framework in which we understand each other's differences and agree on things like, murdering is wrong or stealing is wrong, and it's not so much that we should be looking for a single morality as so much as we should look for the overlaps when we're talking about our social mores. And again, if I guess the point is, some people argue that there's principles by which we that we can discover one true morality. I don't look at it that way, but I do think that there are principles that we can use to find a shared morality that we, whoever that we is, can share if we're so inclined to share them. And as it turns out, there are a lot of people that do want to share mores, like don't steal, and don't lie to people, don't initiate aggression, and so not only is that possible, but this system can explain how that works. And it's not like how it has to work. It's more like explaining how a particular car engine works. That's not the only way a car engine can work, but it does work. And so we could share that design. And I believe that moral systems are analogous in that we can share them, and they can do a good job in helping guide us on how to treat each other. So yeah, that's my pass at describing gladOS, basically. All right, so I got to get back to work now, and I'm sure you and I will talk later.